Welcome into Inside the Pack, episode number 10 here, the Ice Wolves podcast. My name is Michael Wazinski. With me is Dan Webster. Dan, welcome in. It's been quite some time since we did this.
and you put a lot of miles on yourself since we last sat down. How was Alaska? What did you think of it?
Alaska was absolutely beautiful. I mean, besides the cold, obviously, that was a thing that you had to adjust to. And I would say the biggest thing adjusting to it was the day we traveled from Fairbanks to Anchorage and then Anchorage to Kenai, because everybody in Fairbanks was, telling me that and the players and staff that you'll notice a weather difference. You'll notice the difference in degrees going from Fairbanks to Kenai, which was maybe about an hour, 8-9 drive, but we flew from Fairbanks to Anchorage and then drove the 3-hour drive from Anchorage to Kenai. So for me personally, I didn't think, I didn't think much of it. I was like, it's not going to be too big of a deal. But there was times in Kenai where we were at 0. We were at a very low positive degree number. We spent all of Fairbanks in minus 20 to minus 30 degrees.
Sure,
so
right.
that was...
well, you're close to the Arctic Circle up there.
Yeah, and we were about 200 miles from the Arctic Circle, so it was obviously a lot colder than New Mexico,
Right.
which was a big difference maker. But I think the guys liked it, a lot of them from Minnesota, so they're used to cold weather. They were adjusting to it fairly well. They had team parkas, so kept them nice and warm throughout the duration of the trip.
Great. Well, I know anybody who follows the Ice Wolves on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram saw those pictures of the team with the Northern Lights and the team in the hot springs. I mean, it just looked like you were making the most out of your Alaska experience. That's for sure.
Yeah, we really were. I mean, we did the Northern Lights on Sunday. We had the day off. And we decided to make that our trip. It was only 2 carloads of guys that went and did it. And that was, surreal to do. You kind of have to get away from the city, get away from the lights.
Right.
It depends on cloud coverage and stuff like that. You don't want to... you want to be able to see the best visibility that you can. And in order to do that, you basically have to travel out pretty far. We went about 30 minutes or so out of the hotel that we were staying out in Fairbanks in order to go to this one lookout spot. I'm blanking on the name, but that lookout spot was awesome. There were other locals there, even maybe people just coming to see the lights.
Isn't that great?
It was awesome. It was something that, we would have loved to have seen it dance a little bit or maybe be a little bigger, but it's unpredictable.
Sure.
And it's very unique. Every day it's always changing, and so we saw it. For us, it was something that the person the day before didn't see, or the person the next day might not see. So it was very unique. It was a once in a lifetime experience. I'm glad I did it, and went out there with the team. It was a great atmosphere. And then the next day we went to the Chena Hot Springs, which was basically an outdoor hot tub. Located in Fairbanks, out near Chena, but it was just insane to do that. We did that. Every single staff, every single player, we traveled about an hour to go do that, because that was one of the biggest attractions near Fairbanks was the Chena Hot Springs, and we did that on Monday after practice. So that was a great experience. The guys loved it. It was a great way to just relax and take in the scenery. We did it at night. Obviously, it gets pitch black very quickly in Alaska. We spent a good portion of the time in the dark. We were driving to the rink at night, basically, even though we were leaving at 5 o'clock or so to get to the rink 2 hours before.
Yeah, and I looked online, and you were only getting like 5 hours of sunlight, of daylight, at all. So you were up there right at the perfect time.
Yeah, it was. I would love to have done it, and the Chena Hot Springs go until about 11:30 midnight, and that would be awesome to maybe see a Northern Lights while in the hot springs. I'm not quite sure what the what coverage is like, but another thing with the lights is that you can track them too, and that's what we were doing on Sunday night. Is we were tracking them. We were trying to see where a good spot the best chance we would have it. And again, you wouldn't think it would go past you quickly, but or as quick as it did, but it really did. It felt like it came and went in the blink of an eye. We were able to get tons of pictures. There were other people there with their cameras getting group pictures and stuff like that. And it was and then in the hot springs, that was just something else. I mean, on the inside they had a pool. They had 2 indoor hot tubs as well, but on the outside you basically just walk through this ice tunnel. And I'm still at a loss for words as to like how to describe it. That's why I'm trying to like process it and trying to break it down. So you basically just walk outside. You walk down this long ramp, and you're already outside. And you're supposed to shower beforehand too, because you're going from extremely cold temperatures because everybody's in shorts or bathing suits, and you're going from extremely cold temperatures of being in Alaska in minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you're walking right in the hot water. So everybody showered beforehand, just a quick rinse to prepare your body for that intense heat. I don't know quite what the temperature was at. I never saw a reading or anything like that. Nothing.
Yeah.
But you walk down the long ramp basically, and as soon as you get in, it's steamy. It's very foggy. Visibility in front of you at some points is maybe about less than 5 feet. Very, very foggy. So the guys were loving it. There was
that's cool.
There were little warmer spots towards the back end. As you progressed to the back of the hot springs, it got a lot hotter. There was pipes just shooting water out, and tons of rocks. The guys loved it though. Did a big group pic there as well.
Yeah.
So that was something really cool to do with them, experience with them, and the road trips are the best part. Of working in this industry, working at this level of profession. I mean, I know I do a bunch of other stuff for the team throughout the weekdays and do stuff for the rink too, but when it comes time to that trip, I mean, you really get to know some of those players more than you ever did before you went for the trip. And,
Sure.
So that was something that I enjoyed, and I didn't want to take for granted getting to know some of them on a personal level, getting to share stories, because most often than not, you're cooped up in the hotel.
Sure.
We only had X amount of cars per each time, each weekend that, we were playing games. So it's not like you could walk down the street and go to Dion's or walk down the street and go to County Line. You were kind of secluded, and you always had to be chauffeured around. So
Sure.
that was something that you have to adjust to when you're on the road. It's not like in Corpus, where the team will be at basically in a week and a half from now, where they have the scooters that you can just pay and kind of it's an electric scooter
like we have here in Albuquerque.
So they don't obviously they don't have that in Fairbanks or anywhere in Alaska. I do believe it's just covered in snow. So I don't think
they have 4-wheel drive 2-wheel scooters.
Yeah, if they do, we were missing out then on that trip. But I thought it was a great trip in terms of the scenery, in terms of the experience. I mean, for a large portion of the team, it was their first trip to Alaska.
Sure.
I obviously didn't fly with the team initially there. I flew the day after, but I flew back with the team. Flew to Anchorage with the team, so I spent the rest of the trip with the group. So that was obviously
how fun.
Nice to me. That seeing the rinks were really cool. The Big Dipper Arena, it's now a century old. That belonged to the Fairbanks Ice Dogs, and then the Soldotna Sports Complex, located in Soldotna, Alaska, home of the Kenai River Brown Bears. That is the Olympic sheet of ice that. We were talking a lot about before we went on the trip, is that how will the Ice Wolves adjust to playing on an Olympic sheet of ice?
A lot more ice to skate on.
Absolutely, and they had practice
and a lot of room behind goals. A lot of room.
Oh yeah, and it's not too much longer than the Outpost one. I didn't really notice. Obviously, it is slightly longer, but it wouldn't. If you look at it at first glance, it won't throw you off. It's the width. That is what does it for me in terms of a visual aspect, because you notice that more how wide it is compared to how long it might be, because it's just there is a very large difference between a standard sheet of ice and an Olympic size ice. So, the team practiced on a Wednesday. That was their first time in. I went to practices every day with the guys, helped them out with whatever they needed, got a bunch of pictures to use for social media. I know that we're going to be highlighting some of the main pictures, some of the main stuff from the trip, and especially maybe this trip as well to Topeka this weekend and Corpus next weekend, when we have our next home games on Valentine's Day weekend. And then we're also home the weekend after that. So I know we might be putting together something with the production crew, maybe like a little video package, something like that, maybe popping up some pictures during the game from the trip. So
that'd be fun.
So stay tuned. Make sure you get tickets in advance at tickets.nmicewolves.com, because the last time the Ice Wolves were in town back on the 10th and the 11th of January, tickets had sold out the day before,
right?
And we had people coming up to the game when doors opened wanting a ticket, and unfortunately we had none left. So
right.
And that is the caveat to having a small rink. It sells out quickly. You have to be aware of that. And with us being a brand new team, that also is something to take into consideration. We have a lot of season ticket holders, which we appreciate greatly, and we hope that they want to return season ticket holders next year, and hopefully some of these fans that aren't season ticket holders will want to become season ticket holders for our second year in the North American Hockey League. So make sure you get your tickets in advance, because both of those weekends are going to sell out very quickly. I can guarantee you that. We've been on a long streak of sellouts or even near sellouts as well. So we've been doing great in attendance here from the Outpost Ice Arenas. They're also getting new merchandise in here from the Chili's Pro Shop, where Dan and I are recording this podcast right now. So
yeah, and you may hear some noise. We already had a shipment of stuff. Apparently they've just been going crazy with online sales. So thanks for looking at nmicewolves.com and looking at what's going on in the Pro Shop. And so you may hear some noise with Paige and some other folks who are working here before it opens at 1 o'clock, because this is the time that they can pack up stuff and ship it out.
The biggest thing is that I do want to just get this out there, is that the jerseys that can be customized are just getting finished, shipped out, everything like that. So those completed orders too are also in the mix of things going out through FedEx, and like you were saying, online orders are being compiled as well. So they are still working on everything. It's always, filtering in new orders, stuff like that. So they're constantly busy up here. A lot of out-of-state fans, too. So we thank you for the support for the Ice Wolves in their inaugural season. And hopefully you enjoy the merchandise. I know it has been a long delay in terms of getting it out, but they are doing a tremendous job here at the Pro Shop trying to keep up with it. Paige is, basically a one-man band and a jack-of-all-trades type of person, and she's doing everything she can to make sure that, the main ones, that those jerseys that, again, are very expensive, and we want people to be wearing to all the games and to show their support for the Ice Wolves. We want that to be out because, again, we had said that a lot of people had ordered them for Christmas presents. So I know.
And I saw an image, and I took a picture that I'm going to send to my son. But we have new blade shades here in the Pro Shop that have the New Mexico Ice Wolves colors and logo on the side. So check out the blade shades online. They're very cool.
I already have a pair of mine, but I might.
Why am I not surprised?
I have the ones with like that old-fashioned wooden style to it that looks like a shearwood hockey stick.
Yeah.
However, when I saw that these came in, I almost had to purchase one, because just for the team aspect, I was like, these would be great.
Absolutely.
We also got pucks in as well. These are just another example of new merchandise coming in. So these are New Mexico Ice Wolves pucks, North American Hockey League on the back, with the Outpost Ice Arenas on the back as well. $10 pucks. So that is that's a really good deal for that. So that's coming in as well. We obviously still have magnets, mugs, and stuff like that.
Right.
We got in some more jackets too. Zip-ups, polos, all those good stuff. Some more women's apparel as well. Some stuff from War Road. So make sure you check out Chili's Pro Shop. It's not just open on game days. It's also open throughout the week. That is how we are here right now. So and if you have an off day or if you happen to get done work early or even after work, feel free to come on over. It's located basically on the opposite end of the entrance to the Outpost Ice Arenas. So take a look, and also they have tons of hockey gear itself. They have equipment. Every piece of equipment for hockey that you can think of, as well as figure skating. So there's tons of stuff in here, and I don't think you could come in here and think of one thing that this shop does not have. And if you do, make sure you tell the front desk so we can get that order for you.
Yeah, that's right. They'll do that. They'll order, stuff if it's not in stock, or it's not carried here. I'm sure that they can order it for you. So, yeah, I'm so glad you told me about Alaska. Did you get any smoked salmon up there?
No smoked salmon. They did have at the restaurant. So in Kenai, the hotel we stayed at had basically a restaurant inside of it called Louie's. Great restaurant.
Yeah, great shot on Facebook with that.
Yeah, and so they had this thing called reindeer sausage. I didn't get it, but we had breakfast there one morning. I saw that on the menu, so I thought that was interesting. We saw moose one day. We saw another one throughout the trip. I just couldn't snag a picture of it in time, but we were the moose that we saw was with was just basically outside our hotel. We were leaving to go somewhere. Henrik Larsson, the goaltender for the Ice Wolves, spotted it out of the corner of his eye, and we turned around and quick snagged a picture of it, or else we never would have gotten it. So
that's cool.
It was an awesome experience to see, and hunting's very big up there. You can tell. Obviously, they try to control certain things. I see Brandon Holt making his way over to us now. So joining us on Inside the Pack, episode number 10, is Brandon Holt. Brandon, I know you just got done practice. You guys obviously had defensive skills this morning and then a whole team practice shortly after 10 o'clock. You guys will be going to basically your first workouts at the new training facility located in the parking lot here of the Outpost Ice Arena. So what do you think of the training facility? What are you hoping to accomplish there for the rest of the season?
I actually haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's really nice. So it'll be exciting to kind of have our own place to go work and get better.
Brandon, the team went to Alaska for basically the last 11, 12 days or so. For a lot of guys, it was their first time to Alaska. I assume it was your first time as well.
I've actually been there before. I went for hockey actually when I was like 14. There was a national tournament there. We went to Anchorage in the summer, and it was pretty cool.
So that's a great example. So you went during the summer. Compare that to our last trip here, basically mid-January, where it was pitch black for about 15 to 20 hours throughout the day.
Yeah, it was a little bit different. It was still cold, but there's a lot more light. Yeah, it wasn't so dark all day.
So Brandon, I just want to one more thing about the trip. Obviously, there was a lot of cool stuff for the guys to do throughout. Seeing the Northern Lights, going to the Chena Hot Springs. What was one thing out of this trip for you that was stood out amongst everything? What was your favorite time being in Alaska?
I really liked the going to the hot springs. I thought that was really cool, and also when we got dropped off at the airport. The drive from Anchorage to Kenai, I thought that was really cool because we were along the coast for a while. There's like mountains on one side and then the ocean on the other.
So, Brandon, what is it about you scoring against Alaska teams? I mean, that just seems. I mean, you got your first NAHL goal here, I think, against Kenai, and then you go up to Alaska and you score again. I mean, you're sitting at 12 points right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I just came back in the second half, I think, with more confidence, kind of fresh, and I'm just playing with a lot of confidence, and that helps.
So I heard that you were doing defensive drills today. What seems to be the things that you're working on to get better?
Coach Ben's got us working a lot on like using the net for breakouts and cutting off forecheckers and stuff like that, so we can break out pucks clean, because that leads to better offense.
And you obviously, you're a pretty offensive defenseman. It seems, for what you've been doing, and especially the number of assists that you have had. That just tells me that your head's in the game.
Well, yeah. If you break out pucks clean, you can a lot of times get an assist. If you it leads to a rush, or even just getting pucks through from the point and getting rebound assists too. That helps a lot.
So we were talking earlier about obviously the Alaska trip and kind of the the drive to Kenai from Anchorage. You were saying was one of your favorites, being along the coast. I do want to mention that we actually saw ice climbers. The bus driver that picked us up was basically a really good tour guide, pointing out little facts and stuff like that throughout the 3-hour drive to Kenai, and just stuff that we were seeing along the way. And we got to certain points of the trip where along the mountainside was basically just clear blue ice, like baby blue, and people were pulled over on the side of the road, and there was a man ice climbing up at the top. So that was just something going off that, like something that you would never think you would see you see in Alaska. So, but getting back to the games, I do want to say, obviously, they were tough games for you guys, especially the Saturday games. But the Friday games, really close games. Each a 1-goal deficit, and that very first game against Fairbanks on that Friday, it went into overtime. Talk to me about playing up there in that atmosphere. Obviously, different elevation, and even the Olympic sheet of ice. What did that mean for you playing defensively, knowing that those D-to-D passes are going to be a much further than playing at the outpost?
Well, yeah, I thought Fairbanks was really cool. The atmosphere in that rink was crazy, just packed with fans, and it's kind of hostile. But I thought it was really cool. And then Kenai, the rink it's just huge. It's even bigger than an Olympic. And so that it gives the forwards a lot more space. So it's a little bit harder to defend, but it also, for breaking pucks out, you have more time and space. So it's kind of like a trade-off.
Did you get tired at all in terms of just the bigger ice? Did it test your endurance?
I didn't notice it too much, especially because we went down in elevation, so it was kind of like a trade-off there too. So it wasn't too bad, I don't think. I mean, the second period changes got a little bit long with the super wide sheet of ice, but
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, yeah, that would make sense with the second period when you're further away from the bench. Oh, my gosh.
It was a long sprint to get to the bench and try and change before they came back down.
That's amazing. So you're getting ready. We're heading to Topeka. We've done pretty well against them. We're going to be playing in their barn. What is it that you guys are looking for this weekend?
I think we just are more worried about ourselves than who we're playing. We just want to get back on track after this trip, kind of get back to being simple and doing what we do best and just using our speed.
So, again, we were talking about this prior, and obviously this is a very long road trip for the Ice Wolves, their longest of the season. You guys are basically in the middle of it right now. You'll head to Topeka tomorrow, shortly before noon, and then that will be the first trip to Topeka, Kansas for you this season. But like Dan was saying earlier, they are the only team you guys have not lost to yet. The other team, they are 2-0 against the Pilots, but the other team that they have not lost to in regulation, who they will also see during this road trip, are the Corpus Christi Ice Rays. So knowing that you guys have an edge against them, however, Topeka has starting to maybe find their groove as of recently. They are sitting in third place. They have surpassed Shreveport just by 1 point. But for you guys, knowing that you're going into Topeka with that 2-game edge in the season series, you're going to go to Corpus knowing the last time you were there, you picked up 3 out of 4 points, almost got your second sweep in your debut season. So what does that do for you guys confidence-wise, morale-wise, going forward for these next 2 weeks?
Yeah, it definitely gives us a lot of confidence going in knowing we can beat them because we have already. But we also need to, anything can happen in this league, so we need to be ready to go. We can't just go in thinking it's going to happen, be easy, because we swept Kenai the first time, and then they came back and swept us. So
one thing before I let you go, obviously I've been watching your play ever since the get-go back in September, and I think you're developing well. You're keeping Keegan Langfells away from the top defensive spot right now for the Ice Wolves, as He is trying to catch up to you. He's 1 point behind you. You have 2 goals, 10 assists. He's got 4 goals, 7 assists. So you're 1 point ahead of maybe a buddy of yours, Keegan Langfells. You work special teams together. He got a special teams goal this past weekend, actually. It was one of the 2 lone goals on Saturday. He got a power play goal. Spencer Rutherford had a shorthanded goal later in the game. But before I let you go, Brandon, sidetracking all this hockey nonsense, since we're going to be on the road, we won't be doing a podcast on Monday between Dan and I. Who's winning the Super Bowl on Sunday?
I'm not really a huge football guy, but I got to go with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
All right, you heard it here from Brandon Holt. He's got the Chiefs, and we got 2 weeks on the road starting tomorrow. This weekend, the Pilots. Next weekend, the Ice Rays. First trip to Kansas for the Ice Wolves this season. They'll actually end their inaugural season in Kansas as well. They'll end it on the back half of a 2-week road trip again. So, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us here on episode number 10 of Inside the Podcast or Inside the Pack podcast. We'll let you go work out and enjoy that brand new training facility as well, located in the parking lot just across the way from the main Outpost Ice Arena. Dan, if you have anything left to say,
thank you very much. You're inspirational to watch out there. You just keep grinding, and I tell you what, if there are any more kids like you in North Dakota, I'm sure the coaches here would love to see them.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem, Brandon. So we'll let you get back and go work out. I'm sure we'll. Oh, we have a surprise guest. Griffin Santa made an appearance earlier in this podcast as he was right behind Holt. So now he's back again. Go ahead.
Shy Griffin Santa.
Brandon, what have you guys asked him?
We've talked about the Alaska trip and this upcoming trip, Griffin.
Brandon, how do you feel about your vet, which is me if you didn't know, and who's your favorite vet on the team?
Well, this is an easy one. Obviously, you're my favorite vet on the team, Griff. I think my vet, he took me under his wing earlier in the season, and he's really kind of showed me the way of junior hockey, and I thank him for that.
Let's go.
So
Griffin Sanum, folks.
Yeah, he's always one of the characters on the team, and he loves the social media. He's a big camera guy. He's not afraid to step into the spotlight and say hi to his mom pretty often.
In case you folks at home didn't realize, he was not afraid to step in and just take the microphone and just go for it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Brandon answered the question pretty well.
Yeah.
With some pressure from his vet, Griffin Sanum. So. Brandon, we'll let you go. I know you got more stuff to do today than be here talking about the past 2 weeks. I know you got other stuff on your mind going forward, and again, the team's traveling to Topeka, Kansas tomorrow, just shortly before noon. So it's going to be another long road trip, and make sure you got those bags packed, doing some laundry today, I assume. And getting ready for another basically 12-day road trip.
Good luck in Topeka.
Thank you.
Well, Dan, let's get back to the basically what was this past 12 days for the Ice Wolves. So they finished the Alaska trip with a record of 0-3-1. Again, those 2 Friday games were 1-goal differential. 4-3 was the final for both of those game ones for the last 2 weekends. So
once again, those 1-goal games. I mean, we've had, I should count them up. We've had so many 1-goal games this season. It's just been, you talk about heartbreaking. Oh my gosh, it works so hard and come up short, whether it's in overtime or regulation. I see those Friday night games, and I just look at and I see that they were 4-3 in the favor of Kenai and Fairbanks, and it just breaks your heart.
I feel the same way. I mean, I want nothing but success for these guys. I know a lot's on their plate right now, being their brand new season, brand new to North American Hockey League. We had roughly 15 or so guys that were brand new to juniors,
Right.
coming out of high school, from all over the country, all over the world, Swedish forwards, even though they're 99s,
Right.
Ekberg and Gabrielson coming in and having to play that role.
Sure.
So that is obviously in and of itself a tough task. But when you go up against the top two teams from the Midwest, I mean, well, I always say this, they've been going up against some of the best competition in the North American Hockey League. And for a team that has, very, little to no experience when the season started, they are doing fairly well. I know that they're sitting in sixth place in the South Division, but say if this trip to Alaska was against two teams that were in the bottom Midwest of the division, would the outcome have been different? And Fairbanks is a very good team. Kenai is a very good team. I mean, you could tell on the game twos of both weekends that they have the scoring capability.
They do. They do
have
indeed.
the
There's
offense.
no question.
And Landon Pavlison played every game for Kenai. The one game that he did not finish was that game one here at the Outpost when he let in 3 goals on 15 shots. Besides then, he started and finished the rest of the 3 games. And Fairbanks has good goaltenders as well. Austin Ryman picked up another shutout this season, and he was even backing up on game one. So he wasn't even their main go-to guy out in Fairbanks, and he played really well on Saturday's 5-0 win for Fairbanks. And then obviously this past Saturday was an 8-2 final in favor of Kenai. That was the third time this season actually that the Ice Wolves lost or gave up 8 goals in a game.
Right.
So it's obviously unfortunate. They are anomalies. They don't happen too often. Like we were talking about earlier, there's so many 1-goal games.
Right.
This team can keep games close. They can pull back. They've been doing that all season long. They have been battling from behind.
That's right.
And they even went on a 4-game point streak. It was that Friday game, their first game out in Alaska against the Ice Dogs. They picked up that overtime point, and that put them on their longest point streak of the season at 4. I do believe, though, that while they aren't mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, it is going to be a tough hill to climb.
It is.
It is. And
it is.
And, they're 40 games in the books, so they got 20 left in their inaugural season. They're at 20 points. So if you do the math, they got 20 points, 20 games left to be played, 2 points a game, so they can earn 40 points, so they can get up to 60 points is their max right now going into this weekend. And in terms of where that will put them currently, because we already have 2 teams with a playoff berth, and that
in the South Division, right?
Yep, and they're the only 2 teams: the Lone Star Brahmas, who are in first, and the Amarillo Bulls, who are in second.
They both clinched playoff berths, right?
Yep, and Topeka's right behind them at 55, and Shreveport's at 54. So if Shreveport, because Shreveport and Lone Star are the only teams in the South Division that the Ice Wolves have not beaten yet. So obviously they have the season series advantage.
Right.
So the Ice Wolves would have to have, in the next 20 games, Shreveport only earn 5 points, because they would have to keep them away from that 60 number. And the Ice Wolves would have to win out the next 20 games. And again, they faced a very tough first half of their schedule, going up against 2 of the last 3 Robertson Cup championship winners were from the South Division.
Right.
Shreveport and Lone Star, who the Ice Wolves played a lot in the first few months of their inaugural season. Then they went up against Fairbanks, a team out of the Midwest Division who is a very fast team, number 1 out of the Midwest, and just made it to the Robertson Cup final last year and lost to Aberdeen 2-1 in the championship game.
Right.
Fairbanks has won it 3 times in their very illustrious NAHL career. Now you got teams like Amarillo, who won the Robertson Cup back in 2013, but last season they finished with 98 points atop the South Division. So this South Division, very fierce, very daunting to be a brand new team. I think the Ice Wolves are handling it the best they can. I know that there's games that maybe they should have won, and maybe games that they won, but maybe they shouldn't have won. Especially that comeback against Kenai when they scored 4 unanswered in the third. I mean, there are times where you think that they might be down and out, and some people might write them off, but then they show that fire that they have, and that's the best thing I like about this team, is that they aren't giving up. Even if they do at some point become mathematically eliminated from a playoff spot, they are still going to be fighting every single time for those full 2 points.
And that's one thing I like about the fans that the Ice Wolves have here at the Outpost Ice Arena on Tramway Boulevard in Albuquerque. It is wonderful to see when you think that they're down in a game, the fans don't leave. They hang around till the end. They really do. This is a loyal fan group that is really, really impressive. I just love to see that. I mean, I've been to, too many games. I remember when the LA Kings had, maybe 5,000 people in the fabulous Forum. And if the Kings came into the third period and they were losing, half of those 5,000 people would leave. I mean, this doesn't happen here. There's a real loyal following here at the Outpost. It's really good to see.
And another good thing to see is just what they're doing in the community. I mean, they're doing, when they are here, they are trying to do things at the Outpost. They're trying to do things as well as, local schools and whatnot. So they're trying to build that rapport with fans, not just, by having them come to the games, watch them, and say, okay, see you in 4 weeks at our next games. They're
Right.
trying, when they are here, obviously this week they only have a day and a half, and my God, I thought today was Monday till about 10 o'clock because I'm just so thrown off. I got 5 hours of sleep because I was a little
Well, you
jet
flew in the
lagged.
middle of the night, practically.
Yeah, our flight this past Monday morning, yesterday, was 12:30 a.m. flight out of Anchorage. Then we got into Seattle at 5 in the morning. We had a layover until 7:40. We left Seattle at 7:40, got into Albuquerque at 11:35, and I was just
Exhausted.
exhausted. I probably got about
Absolutely.
4 hours of sleep
Sure.
throughout the entire flight.
Yeah.
Flight was fine. Guys, everybody got their bags, which was the best part, especially everybody's got to check their bags, hockey sticks, everything like that. It's a big thing.
It is.
Especially traveling with a sports team. So it was
Yeah.
nice that everybody was able to collect their stuff. But man, 11 o'clock rolled around last night, and I felt like it was still 8, 9 o'clock or something
Sure.
like that. I was so thrown off.
Yeah.
But going into this weekend, the Ice Wolves are going to go up against the Pilots, who are 7-2-0-1 in their last 10 games. They're on a 1-game win streak. The Ice Wolves are on a 4-game losing streak. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10 games. However, at the end of this 4-week road trip, they will face the Corpus Christi Ice Rays, who are on a 13-game losing streak. They're 0-9-1 in their last 10 games, and it's something to really talk about, Dan, because another team that's severely struggling in the South Division, that's having trouble finding a single point or anything, are the Odessa Jackalopes, who the Ice Wolves still have to play a few times before their first
that's
ever
who we're
season
gonna,
wraps up.
That's who we're going to play over the Valentine's weekend.
They're on a 21-game losing streak.
And if I remember correctly, both Corpus Christi and Odessa just had coaching changes. So
And it was almost back-to-back days, too. That was a
Right.
few weeks ago.
So here we are. This weekend we're playing a team that we swept in November 8th and 9th. We beat them 2-1 and 4-2. And so we're going up against the Topeka Pilots. Admittedly, it's on their home ice, but we know that we can beat them. And then the following weekend is Corpus Christi, and then Odessa. So we have a chance to pick up some wins this and get some points this weekend, and the next 2 weekends.
So this past weekend, they didn't, just go up against a former teammate in Dylan Hadfield, but they also, this weekend, they're going to be going up against a former teammate, Josh Langford, who was a goaltender briefly for the Ice Wolves. He played 3 games for us, lost the 3 games. He had 12 goals against, so 4 goals against average in the games, with a save percentage of .852. However, with the Topeka Pilots, he has played 8 games and is 7-0-0-1.
Wow.
He has a 2.11 goals against average and a save percentage of .912. He's allowed 17 goals in the 8 games played. So he also spent last season with the Chippewa Steel playing 42 games. He went 10-26-1-1 during his first season in the North American Hockey League. So this weekend, Ice Wolves going up against, I'm sure Langford's going to get one of the 2 starts this weekend, maybe if not both. We'll have to wait and see because again, Kenai played Pavlison both nights, so you never know who's
Right.
going to get the call in between the pipes. But I would assume the way that Langford's been playing for Topeka, that the Ice Wolves will have to go up against their former goaltender, Josh Langford, from Frisco, Texas, and the Ice Wolves then will head to Texas
Right.
the following weekend to go up against Corpus.
Well, it's always fun to go up against a former teammate, and especially a former goalie. It would have been nice if we could have kept Langford, but we had 3 goalies, and obviously that was a sign that somebody was going to leave. We just didn't have any idea that Josh Graziano was going to get a commit and leave midseason, and so that was kind of a surprise. But I'm sure that they're going to want to. I'm sure that they're going to want to do everything they can, and they're going to get some coaching advice on this goalie, and they know what his strengths are, and so they also know what his weaknesses are. So I'm looking for a great game this weekend against Topeka, and seeing the Ice Wolves go up against Josh Langford.
I am too. I think it's going to be a very close game. Again, the Ice Wolves 0-3-1 in their last 4 games. They unfortunately were unable to pick up a win during that Alaska trip, but I think things are going to start to turn around for them. This is going to be a nice trip, a nice stretch for them because, like I was saying earlier, they not only go up against Topeka and Corpus this week, then when they come back home, they're going up against Odessa, who's last in the South Division and on a 21-game losing streak. Then they'll face Topeka again.
Right here
So
in
within
the
next
in the ice
4
arena.
weeks, I mean, they're playing teams that all those teams that they've beaten. Again, I think Topeka is the one team, obviously, out of that 4-week trip that the Ice Wolves really have to hone in and focus in on because Topeka has changed since the last time the Ice Wolves saw them back in November. It's going to be a completely different
Well, they
team
got a
in
good
general.
goalie now.
Exactly. And Langford is
right.
7 wins in 8 games played and has only been, again, letting
Sure.
up just over 2 goals against per game. The save percentage is over 900, which is very good for this level of hockey. So
Yep.
the Ice Wolves, again, have been shooting on him during practices, and they know maybe a certain spot to go on him that is maybe a challenging spot. And I'm sure Langford knows going in that he
That's right.
also knows that,
Sure.
that he knows where guys might shoot. So it's going to be a chess match between New Mexico and Topeka this coming weekend as the Ice Wolves make their first trip to Kansas this season. Again, their last 2 games of their inaugural season, games 59 and 60, will be in Topeka, Kansas to close out the inaugural season for New Mexico. Will they be in playoff contention by that time? I'm not quite sure. Again, their max points that they can get is 60, and right now the last playoff spot is Shreveport at 54. So out of the next 20 games for Shreveport, they can only basically get 5 points, and that's a fairly good team that just recently won the Robertson Cup championship. I do think that you're going to witness a crazy difference in this season compared to next season in the South Division. No matter how many guys return from the Ice Wolves, I know that there's a lot of rookies on the team that still have a lot of years of eligibility left, but we're gonna see a Topeka team that has, when we saw them back in November, about 18 99s on their team. I mean, on
Right.
a roster of about 22 or 23, you're going to lose 75-80% of your team.
Right.
So,
And
on
just
top
just
of-
to remind the listening audience, 99s means birth year. So 99s are going to age out after this season. So they're in their last season of eligibility in the NAHL. So when you hear someone like Griffin Sanum talking about what veteran do you like to Brandon Holt, the veterans here are, obviously the older guys. And so what Topeka is going to see a huge roster change after this season.
And they're not the only ones. I mean, Lone Star is going to be the same way. I believe Shreveport's going to be the same way in terms of, and I think Amarillo. All those 4 teams, all 4 playoff teams, have, I believe, at least 13 plus, if not 12 plus, 99s on their team, and not too many rookies to be found in their roster. So when you look at it on the flip side, the lower 3 teams, the teams on the outside looking in of a playoff spot, Corpus, New Mexico, and Odessa. Those are teams that currently right now have very few vets on the team, a lot more rookies, and I think you're going to see the change because you're kind of already seeing it out in the East Division, because that's where I was at last year, and you can tell the teams that had that vet experience that lost it and now are trying to pick up the pieces.
Right.
I was with Jamestown last year. They're in out of seventh in the East Division. They lost 12 people last season to age outs, and even one guy went early for college. And now you have Wilkes-Barre, who didn't quite have too many big pieces last season. They didn't make a playoff spot. They're now in third place. New Jersey atop of the standings. Maryland Black Bears. It was their first season in the North American Hockey League last year, Dan. They finished last in the East Division. They are in fourth place with a playoff spot. So just because you're out one season, you could be in the next season. That's what makes this level of hockey great. While you got guys, for certain teams that will stick there for 3 years because they know at some point it's going to be all vets like Topeka and make a playoff push, or maybe like an Amarillo or a Lone Star where it's going to be all vets. We see Matt Guerrera all the time. He's been with Lone Star for like 3 seasons, and they're just you're trying to win as many championships as you can. And
Matt Guerra is an amazing skater. He was really something to watch. And when they were here, and I talked to Dan Wildfong, he said, we've been where you are. So,
and every team has.
Exactly. That's just the way it goes. And so our guys have been just putting their heart and soul into going up against some really, really good teams, and they've been pulling out some pretty cool victories. So I'm looking forward to the last half of this season as being just exciting and fun, and so be sure to get your tickets. They're going to go away. Get to nmicewolves.com because those tickets do sell out. And what a wonderful way to spend Valentine's. Bring your sweetheart, whoever he or she may be, and come see a hockey game here that weekend, February 14th and 15th.
The following night, Scout Night, so we're going to have Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts out as well in attendance, so doing flag ceremony, puck drop, stuff like that. So that's going to be a big night, big weekend. So we're already, looking at, for them, a large group on Saturday of 100, 150 for the Scout Night. So on top of that, with all of our season ticket members, it leaves very little for walk-in. So make sure you try to get your tickets in advance, and we can't stress that enough.
And as we record this in the Pro Shop, keep in mind the Pro Shop is open. Is it still 1 to 9 Monday through Friday? 1 to 8. 9 to 9 on weekends. So Paige is here working, and she's trying to get all the mail orders out before the shop opens at 1 o'clock, and she's just doing a great job. But let me just give you a bit of advice. On game night, if you come in here on game night, it's crazy. I mean, there are just so many people in here buying all sorts of stuff. People come from out of town to see, players that they either knew in the past or, family. Get in here during the week if you can. You'll get a much better selection, and you'll get a wonderful smiling face from Paige as she will be happy to show you whatever it is that you're looking for. So you can come and pick up something with that fabulous New Mexico Ice Wolves logo on it and support the team and the community.
Yeah, Paige is really the Vanna White of the Outpost Ice Arenas. I mean, she does a great job of just displaying everything, knowing. She's a big Minnesota person and
played hockey for 10 years.
Yeah, and she knows everything. Just not about the merchandise, too, about the equipment. So you come in here with an equipment option, the Vanna White of the Outpost will have you covered.
She rocks.
Going off of sidetracking a little bit, but I just real quick before we end today's podcast, we can end on this note. I think in terms of where this team started their inaugural season and where they want to finish from game 1 to game 60, obviously they didn't get out of 7th place until the new year. So it took them a long time to get out of that spot. However, now that they're in sixth place and with the team above them struggling and the team below them struggling, I think it's a huge goal for them if they can't, clinch a playoff spot, which is a very big mountain for them to climb. A little smaller of a hill for them to get to will be the fifth place. They are 6 games behind Corpus Christi in terms of points, so they're 12 points behind them. They have to win 6 games to go up and tie. They do have the tiebreaker on them because they've only played them 2 times so far. So there's still a lot of games to be played between the Ice Wolves and the Ice Rays. 2 of those games will be played next weekend back in Corpus. The Ice Rays have not traveled here yet to the Outpost Ice Arena, so it's going to be a little bit smaller of a hill to climb for the Ice Wolves, but I think that one is more reachable than a playoff spot because, again, Shreveport, in the next 20 games, I do think they will earn 6 points at some point or another. Or it's not even that. If the Ice Wolves, by any means lose one game this weekend, that also drops their point total that they can get to 58. So, every little thing like that obviously is going to go against them. However, I think if they can go out and get 5th place to end their inaugural season from where they started is such a big thing to capitalize on going into your second year with about over half your team, 75% of your team, being rookies and eligible to return again. And you're going to go up against teams that are losing 75% of their roster due to vets, and they're not going to be able to bring in that many vets. And they have tenders and whatnot in the draft, but this team is going to dominate the South Division next season and possibly the season after that.
So tell me, I know that it hasn't been announced, but there's a special game coming up that's going to feature players from all across the league. And so I know that they haven't announced who the players are going to be, but tell us about that game.
So what you are referring to is called the Top Prospects Tournament. It's located this season, and it was last season as well. They kind of always change up the venue. This season it's in Attleboro, Massachusetts, home of the Northeast Generals out of the East Division. So basically what that means is that there's small divisions. They played 2 games, or it's over 2 days. So scouts from all NCAA D1 teams are there, represented, so about 60 scouts. D3 scouts are there, and then I believe it was 1 scout per every NHL scout. You can send up to 2 players non-committed, so every team sends guys, and then you can send guys that are committed. And the guys that are committed play on like a team selects, or a selects team. So red or blue was the thing last year, and then the other guys represent their division. So we will send 2 guys to represent the South Division. They will play with guys maybe that they fought against, in Amarillo and Shreveport and Lone Star. So they all come together. It's basically, I think it's a Monday and a Tuesday, something like that. And then that will be after this road trip leading up to our first homestand on Valentine's weekend. So it's in that weekday stretch that the team will be going up there. They also have, I believe it's the first and second place team coaches will go in, or the first place, something like that. I forget how they determine the coaching staff, but I think Dan Wildfong was selected, and Rocky Russo, Lone Star, and Amarillo's coaches.
Sure.
So, again, the only teams thus far to have clinched the playoff spot. They are 67 points already. Both of those teams have played 42 games, so they've 18 left to go. Again, Amarillo had 98 points last season, and Lone Star won the Robertson Cup just a few seasons back. So those are 2 teams that could easily make a long playoff run. You also could see a very likelihood first-round matchup of the Lone Star Brahmas and Shreveport Mudbugs, which would be a very good first-round matchup. We had the free game of the week for the Ice Wolves this past Friday.
That's
I know it was a very late game, and I want to thank every single fan that tuned into the away audio, and not even that, just tuned into the game itself for free, wherever you may be. I know the time zones were very hard to adjust to, not just for me, but also for the fans watching, just because they started so late. Luckily, that free game of the week wasn't on Saturday, or it would have ended very late because Alex Gomez broke the glass. So out in the first period with 10:45 left to go in it, and it was 0-0 at the time. But I thought for sure that game on Friday, if I was a hockey fan and I had no correlation to the Ice Wolves and I was just watching it because it was a free game and you can't pass up the word free, I would have purchased Hockey TV just off of that game alone. I thought it was great. It was a back and forth game. There was 6 goals scored in the third period, 3 aside. It was a 4-3 final. I mean, big saves left and right. Number 1 in net for them. Literally number 1 on the jersey for the Ice Wolves and for Kenai Landon Pavlison. So it was such a back and forth game. And on that Olympic size ice, and even Brandon said it was a little bit better or a little bit bigger in terms of the width and the length of an Olympic size ice. So you have to adjust to it a little bit more. And I thought that was just worked out really well for them. And hopefully more people recognize the Ice Wolves. More people maybe tuned in and saw that the effort that they're putting in. Again, that wasn't the second to last place team out of the league, or that wasn't the last place team in the league that they were playing. They played against the second best team out of the Midwest Division. I mean, They went up against a team. Yeah, they swept them, but that second game here at the Outpost was a very close one. 6-5 final.
That's right.
On Saturday, and you just got to think, I mean, not that there was a big rivalry between these two teams. Again, they only played one another 4 times this season. The season series is already over, as is with Fairbanks. They play all the South Division teams a total of 8 times, and the Midwest teams, or just the 2 Alaska teams, 4. But to get back to my point, I just think that in general, this Top Prospects tournament is a great outlook for the team. It allows those that aren't committed to get a look at by college scouts and by NHL scouts, and those that are committed get an even better look in terms of where their playing style's at, and maybe if they can get to the NHL draft at some point.
So be sure to follow on nmicewolves.com or download the app, the Ice Wolves app. Follow us on social media. You'll find out who from the Ice Wolves will be going to this game, and you can follow them on this game. Follow us on social media. The Twitter account and the Facebook account, Instagram. They're all updated very frequently, and we'll keep you up to date on the news of the Ice Wolves between games.
Dan, if you have anything else to say, feel free to wrap it up. I know we've been talking a lot. We haven't had a podcast since we left before the break. We won't have one until we get back. But also, then we could talk about who on the Ice Wolves roster has been selected to the Top Prospects tournament, because we can we won't be able to interview him, unfortunately, or the people that do go if there's multiple selected. However, we can still talk about it. We can still talk about the people that do get selected and go and represent New Mexico for the Ice Wolves, and hopefully produce goals, get their name out there, and get some recognition from scouts, and maybe we'll have some more commits.
What a great opportunity it is.
Season.
Yeah, what a great opportunity it is for those young men, and it's a development league. They're here to get to be seen. That's the whole point of the NAHL. And if you don't follow the NAHL on social media, just do so, just to see the number. Every time a player from a team signs to a commit to a college, it's announced. It's just wonderful to see, because every single one of these kids here is dreaming about playing in a D1 school, and so we were so happy in December for Josh Graziano, who signed a commit and is now playing for Union College in Schenectady, New York. God bless him and his journey there. But yeah, be sure to follow the social media accounts to keep up on the news of the Ice Wolves between games.
Well, for Dan Webster, Brandon Holt, I'm Michael Wazinski. Thanks so much for tuning in to the 10th episode of Inside the Pack, the podcast covering your New Mexico Ice Wolves fandom, as we tried to unravel what just happened over the last 12 days for New Mexico and what will transpire in the next 12 days for them, as In just a few days, they're going to head, actually tomorrow, they're going to head to Topeka, but in a few days, they're going to play the Pilots for the third and fourth time this season. However, like you said early in the podcast, it's going to be the first time the Ice Wolves are traveling to Topeka's barn. So it's going to be a new atmosphere, and the Ice Wolves are going to have to adjust to life on the road for another 12 days. Again, stay up to date on our social media. The people being selected for the Top Prospects tournament for the Ice Wolves will be announced towards the tail end of this week, so make sure you stay up to date on that when we let that release go, as well as the league. Again, for everybody here on the podcast, for everybody that kind of popped in between and in and out, for the wonderful Paige who does all the stuff here at the Pro Shop, we want to thank you for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Inside the Pack. We'll be back in about 2 weeks when the Ice Wolves get ready for their first homestand in about 4 weeks, when they go up against the Odessa Jackalopes, who are struggling, but right now they have to get past the Pilots and the Ice Rays